As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, today's spotlight is on the AFC North, and now all eyes turn to Cleveland. Shedeur Sanders was the headline-grabbing selection by the Browns in this year's draft. He's officially in training camp, where he'll battle for the top spot in a crowded quarterback room. That's right. The Browns currently roster veteran Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and another rookie, Dillon Gabriel. But Shedeur is determined to separate himself this summer and seize the starting job. All right, Mike T. Is Shedeur the AFC North quarterback with the most to prove this season? Absolutely. If I were the general manager of the Browns, I'd sit Shedeur down and tell him, "You've got the answers to the test. This is your audition. You have one season to show us you're the quarterback of the future. We've got 2 first-round picks in next year's draft. Go out there and perform so we don't need to spend one on a QB. I believe he's a superior prospect compared to Dillon Gabriel, and frankly, I'd look to move Kenny Pickett." That's a ton of pressure on a 5th-round pick, though. Sure, but why only give him one season? Because, Molly, this is a now-or-never window. The Browns possess 2 first-rounders, and next year's draft class is loaded with elite quarterback talent. Jacksonville could potentially miss the playoffs, giving the Browns a high-value pick. So the opportunity is right now, and Shedeur needs to seize it. There's a real sense of urgency. The message is clear. Prove we don't need to use those picks on a quarterback. Earn the trust of your teammates. Gain the respect of the locker room. Your resume at Colorado showed you're capable. This is more than a tryout for today. It's a campaign for the next 5 years. Treat this like the job interview of your life. We want him to succeed. I hear that, but I also feel the weight being placed on Shedeur as a 5th-rounder is excessive. It's not just pressure, it's expectation with a limited grace period. I understand the intent behind the challenge. Show us enough to make us pass on drafting a QB, but in my view, that's a near impossible task under those terms. We can't have it both ways. Earlier with Stephen A., we talked about the difference between Cam Newton's path and Jalen Hurts. When you're a first-rounder, expectations are massive. When you're taken later, you're boxed into this idea that you're a project, someone who needs time to develop. Now, if you're asking me who in the AFC North faces the most pressure to perform, it's Joe Burrow. The Bengals have made uncharacteristic moves to surround him with talent. He's been vocal. "I want T. Higgins. I want Jamar Chase. Pay them both." Well, now that train better keep rolling, or the heat's going to rise fast. I'd argue it's Lamar Jackson. This isn't a debate about whether he's talented. He's one of the most electrifying athletes this league has ever seen, a generational quarterback. But how you finish defines your legacy. Lamar vowed revenge after last season, saying the Ravens would return with fire. But like we said with the Bills and Sean McDermott, eventually, if the wins don't come, the questions start. We've already seen John Harbaugh win a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. So when you look at Lamar, the question becomes, are you a phenomenal athlete, or are you a postseason caliber leader who elevates his team when the stakes are highest? People always point out that Lamar was the most dominant player in college. He won the Heisman, but he never captured an ACC championship or a national title. And in the NFL, he's had MVP-caliber seasons, yet still hasn't made a Super Bowl appearance. This season is crucial for him to silence those doubts. But to bring it back to the original question, if the 4 of us were sitting here a year from now, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are already bona fide superstars. They're going to command monster contracts regardless. The real spotlight is on Shedeur Sanders, because his window to claim the future of this franchise is now. What if I told you the greatest threat to Shedeur Sanders' NFL journey wasn't a torn ligament or a crowded quarterback room, but a fabricated narrative? A falsehood whispered into the ears of restless Colts fans, sparked by click-hungry fringe insiders, and now parroted like gospel by media gatekeepers who've never been comfortable with a young black man carrying himself like a corporate mogul in cleats. By now, you've likely heard the static, the swirling rumors that Shedeur is on his way out of Cleveland, that he's being dealt to the Indianapolis Colts to compete with a shattered Anthony Richardson and a fading Daniel Jones. They want you to believe Shedeur's a fourth-string afterthought, disposable. That this transcendent talent, who surgically dismantled college defenses with poise and precision, isn't even worth cultivating. But here's the truth they won't speak aloud. These whispers didn't originate in locker rooms or front offices. They were born in the gutters of the internet, fabricated by phony blogs and low-tier betting sites, dressed in flashy language and fed to lazy insiders, consumed by fans too distracted to discern real from rumor. This isn't just a bad take. It's a hit job. Shedeur Sanders isn't battling defenders. He's battling a rigged narrative. And every time he rises, they manufacture a new way to pull him down. First it was his swagger, then his lineage. Now, a bogus trade rumor. So today, we're not just discussing football. We're dissecting how this lie was weaponized, who gains from keeping Shedeur suppressed, and why this young man might just be the most dangerous quarterback in the entire NFL. Not because he's reckless, but because he's ready. And what's coming next might just flip this league upside down. This myth didn't originate from Adam Schefter. It didn't come from Ian Rappaport. It didn't even come from Berea. No, this lie crawled out of the back alleys of the internet, pieced together by fan blogs, speculative odds, and a desperate hunger for chaos. It began with a whisper from Jonathan Adams of BetUS, not ESPN, not NFL.com, but a gambling affiliate site. Adams floated a maybe the Browns release Shedeur. Maybe he lands in Indy. And that's all it took. One ambiguous column, and the NFL echo chamber took care of the rest. Then came the absurdities. Blogs like motorcyclenews.net, yes, a motorcycle gossip site, suddenly pivoted into sports coverage, publishing AI-tiered drivel with zero sources, no quotes, just baseless clickbait masked in pseudo-intellectual fluff. And from there, the wildfire spread. Let's not be naive. The media knew exactly what it was doing. Truth was never the goal. Engagement was. Shedeur's name, Colts, was chaos, clicks. This wasn't about informing. It was about distracting. And who better to target than a young, unapologetically confident black quarterback who's already become a lightning rod for projection? Because here's the unspoken truth. This rumor was never about football. It was about power, about controlling the storyline, creating doubt. If we don't challenge this smear in real time, the lie calcifies. The fiction becomes folklore. But while they manufactured drama, Shedeur did something they never anticipated. He grinded. While anonymous insiders played telephone with fake headlines, Shedeur Sanders was in the brutal Texas heat, doing what he's always done. Not curated content for Instagram, not gimmicky PR stunts. Real work, grit, precision, sweat-y equity. While the league sipped cocktails on private beaches and the media scrolled for gossip, Shedeur was at the Sanders Ranch, locked in with his wideouts, perfecting timing, chemistry, and trust. One of them, Gage Larvadain, an overlooked receiver who built real rhythm with Shedeur during rookie minicamp and OTAs. This wasn't a photo op. It was preparation. It was leadership. It was what winning looks like in July. You think Joe Flacco is out there in backyard sessions with fringe receivers? You think Daniel Jones is flying across states to build rapport with third stringers? Be serious. Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are already certified superstars. Their legacies are solidified, and the lucrative contracts heading their way are nothing short of well-deserved. But when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, the future remains an enigma. Is he Cleveland's next franchise signal caller, a long-term backup, or merely a journeyman in the making? Now, Mike Mound, you're evaluating this from a career trajectory lens. You're asking, whose performance this year alters their future? But there's another angle: public perception. The lens through which fans, analysts, and front offices will judge these quarterbacks moving forward. Shedeur is a fifth-round selection. Expectations were modest at best. So if he even sniffs a starting role, he's already obliterated the ceiling many imposed on him the night he was drafted. Buckle up, NFL faithful, because Cleveland just became ground zero for the most combustible quarterback competition in the league. The Browns' quarterback room is an emotional pressure chamber teeming with ambition, anxiety, and all-out war for supremacy. You've got Joe Flacco, the grizzled 40-year-old trying to squeeze one final act from a storied past. Kenny Pickett, a former first-rounder desperate to salvage relevance. Dillon Gabriel, a rookie with a third-round pedigree and a chip on his shoulder. And then there's Shedeur Sanders, Colorado's sharpshooting phenom, a fifth-round flamethrower already shaking the depth chart to its core. With training camp in full swing, the question isn't merely who starts Week 1, it's who emerges from this gauntlet intact. The Browns hold 2 first-round picks in 2026, and the sands are slipping. Will Shedeur rise above the chaos? Or will Cleveland's infamous QB carousel spin again? Let's zoom in on the man of the moment, Shedeur Sanders. Once projected as a top 10 lock, a cool-blooded assassin with an elite arm and NFL-ready command, Shedeur slid in shocking fashion to pick 144, a stunning draft day descent. Why the plunge? Whispers swirled about his media magnetism, rumors of uncoachable habits, and anonymous scouts muttering that he was a backup at best. Brutal. But Shedeur? Unbothered. He's torching those narratives like dry brush. ESPN reports he's consistently outclassing Gabriel in camp, zipping passes through microscopic windows with surgeon-like precision. His footwork? Fluid. His presence? Magnetic. While Flacco leans on experience and Pickett battles for a comeback, Shedeur is straight-up unnerving veterans. According to NFL.com, he's not just participating, he's orchestrating, commanding the huddle, winning over linemen, flipping doubters into disciples. This isn't rookie jitters, this is a cultural takeover. But let's address the elephant in the locker room. Can a fifth-rounder really dethrone a Super Bowl MVP like Flacco, or leapfrog a former first-rounder like Pickett? Let's break down this volatile quarterback cocktail. 4 men, 1 throne, no room for error. Flacco, coming off a surprising late-season revival in 2023 with 4 wins in 5 starts, looked washed in Indy last year. Kenny Pickett, acquired for a bargain 5th-rounder, remains a high-risk project with inconsistency tattooed on his stat sheet. And Dillon Gabriel? Sure, he was picked 50 spots ahead of Shedeur, but he's getting flat-out outplayed. Per CBS Sports, The Browns are rumored to be trimming this quarterback room down to 3, with Flacco or Pickett potentially on the chopping block. Why? Because Shedeur isn't waiting his turn. He's rewriting the depth chart. This isn't a position battle. It's a silent mutiny. And the urgency? It's nuclear. The Browns open with the Bengals, Ravens, Packers, Lions, Vikings, and Steelers. One misstep and the season spirals. Cleveland cannot afford to gamble on the wrong quarterback. So why is Shedeur Sanders dominating headlines? Because this isn't just about a rookie job hunt. This is legacy warfare. The Browns' 2 first-round picks in 2026 mean one thing. If Shedeur doesn't stake his claim now, the front office may pivot to a shiny new franchise QB in a loaded draft class. As one analyst bluntly said, this isn't a redshirt year. This is a one-shot audition. That's ruthless pressure. But Shedeur thrives under fire. He's not just delivering darts. He's operating like a battlefield general. While veteran voices like Deontay Johnson publicly lean toward Pickett, the practice tape whispers a different truth. Shedeur's pre-snap IQ is razor-sharp. His pocket escape, elusive. And his arm, a howitzer. Browns fans are chanting QB1 already. Social media's ablaze with clips of his precision and poise. But let's not forget, Cleveland has burned through 40 quarterbacks since 1999. 40. That's not a trend, that's a plague. If Shedeur stumbles, he risks becoming name number 41 on that infamous list. But the true fuel behind this firestorm, it's the disrespect. The smear campaign. Shedeur's outworking every quarterback in that room before the pads are even unpacked. But that story, the one of discipline, leadership, and relentless grind, doesn't sell as easily. A black quarterback grinding in silence? That doesn't move headlines like trade rumors and locker room controversy. Because here's the playbook. Show up early, and they call you arrogant. Stay late, and you're a distraction. But Shedeur? He's been preparing for this moment his entire life. And while the media spun fiction, Shedeur was writing receipts. One's only real work can cash. Now we arrive at the root question. Why is there even trade talk at all? The answer is buried deep in the politics of Berea. Because this isn't about performance, it's about power. Let's drop the illusion. The Browns' quarterback room isn't a meritocracy. It's a game of political chess. And right now, Shedeur Sanders isn't being treated like a quarterback. He's being treated like a threat. Not because he's underperforming, but because his mere presence disrupts the hierarchy. Look at the so-called depth chart. Betting odds on Polymart list Flacco at 50% to start. Kenny Pickett, the NFL's most uninspiring former first-rounder, sits at 22%. And Shedeur, the man outworking them both in silence? Dillon Gabriel, the raw, untested rookie with 0 NFL film, holds a 16% chance to start. And Shedeur, dead last at 14%. That's how little the so-called experts value the most polished passer in the building. Let's be clear, this isn't about what Shedeur lacks. It's about what he threatens to become if given a real shot. This league has always been uneasy with a fifth-round black quarterback outshining their hand-picked first-round poster boys. It always has. That's why Gabriel, who's never faced an NFL snap, is somehow listed above Shedeur. That's why Kenny Pickett, a player who's been the personification of mediocrity since day one, is viewed as safer. And Flacco? Don't even get me started. The last time we saw him, he looked like a fossil, immobile, inaccurate, and one blindside hit away from retirement. Yet somehow, he's still got the keys. Make it make sense. The truth? Shedeur isn't trailing because of performance. He's trailing because of perception. The NFL doesn't quite know what to do with a quarterback who talks like a CEO, trains like a vet, and plays like a problem. So instead, they keep him hidden, buried on the depth chart until they figure out how to mute him altogether. But while Cleveland hesitates, Indianapolis is starving for authenticity. And that's where this story really ignites. Let's call it what it is. The Colts don't have a quarterback competition. They have a quarterback crisis. This isn't about development, it's about identity collapse. Start with Anthony Richardson. On paper, the physical gifts are absurd. He's a walking human highlight, a quarterback built in a lab. But here's the issue. What happens when the camera stops rolling? You're left with injuries, inconsistency, and a star who's never available when it matters. As camp nears, he's nursing yet another health setback. Colts fans won't say it aloud, but deep down, they know it. Anthony Richardson might be the dream they need to wake up from. Then there's Daniel Jones, fresh off a failed stint in New York. Let's stop sugarcoating it. He's not a redemption story. He's a placeholder, a band-aid on a bullet wound. Safe, temporary, uninspiring. He doesn't shift momentum. He can barely move the chains. Yet somehow, he is QB1 in Indy. We all remember the infamous run, the one where he tripped over his own feet. That play was a metaphor for his career. And in the storm of quarterback confusion, Shedeur's name surfaces. Not because he belongs in this chaos, but because he might clarify it. A steady hand. A real quarterback. One who reads defenses with surgeon-like precision and doesn't need a 4.340 to stay relevant. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Why is Shedeur even being mentioned in the same breath as failed projects? Because when you're black, confident, and undeniably talented, the system will always try to humble you before you ever take a snap. And that brings us to the comparison the league doesn't want to acknowledge. Shedeur Sanders versus Anthony Richardson. They represent polar extremes of the quarterback spectrum. And that's why the media's been working overtime, not to elevate both, but to promote one while suppressing the other. This isn't about raw ability. It's about narrative control. Richardson is the prototype the NFL can't quit. Built like a linebacker, runs like a gazelle, jumps like an Olympian. He's a viral clip waiting to happen. But highlights don't win games. Consistency does. And Richardson has never had it. Instead of inflaming the situation with sensational headlines, Manini took a more nuanced approach, urging viewers to consider the broader context of Shedeur Sanders' reality. A 21-year-old quarterback thrust